Okay, so today I want to do a video about the theoretical underpinnings of anarchism and Satanism because I believe that they are actually quite similar in principle. Um, and I'm going to be looking at this from a historical perspective. So, okay, let's dive right in. Now, this is from libertarianism.org. Free love, Moses Harman. So remember this guy's name. He's pretty important. Moses Harman, publisher of Lucifer, was an important figure in the 19th century free love, anarchist, and feminist movements. Yeah, so he had a publishing house. Okay, it was originally called Valley Falls Liberal. Okay, and then it settled on the permanent title of Lucifer the Lightbearer. This guy was an anarchist, clearly, based on a law of equal freedom, the Spencerian formula, that each individual ought to be free to do anything she chooses insofar as she leaves all others equally free. Okay. Believe that invasions of individual sovereignty and privacy in all matters, from sex to economics, were degenerative to moral edification and to genuine personal development. Okay, it's all about the individual autonomy, right? It's about the individual against everything else. He believed that the full development and maturation of love was impossible without full freedom. I mean, look, I don't disagree with that. Okay, and I don't necessarily agree with government meddling in things, but it's interesting to note we're having this abortion debate right now. And at one point in history, this was just something that women did. They had full control over, and was just not in the purview of these medical officers at all. It wasn't written in the law. It was just something that existed, and so it wasn't explicitly against the law. You know, it wasn't protected under the law. It just wasn't in the law at all. And in a way, I think that that's reasonable because of the fact that human sovereignty is human sovereignty, and having that matter in the court system is obviously can be an issue. Although certainly I do not want women getting arrested for miscarriages or that sort of thing, or having straight up abortions. Obviously not. I'm not for that. And honestly, you can fuck off my channel if you are. Just my take. But anyways, this guy, what I'm talking about here, what I want to frame this as is like these people promoting abortion clinics for the sake of eugenics, okay? And I feel like this is why they had to weave it into the legal structure, is because it was for social engineering. It was never about women's rights. It was never about feminism. It was about eugenics and trying to weed out undesirable people in their minds, who they consider undesirable. So this guy kind of falls into that circle of people. And interestingly, he's very connected to, sorry, let me pull up. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but I find this fascinating. If anyone has ever done any research on Emma Goldman, I would love to know your take on her, because I really feel like this woman was some sort of fed. Like, I know that's a hot take here, but, okay, from Russian Empire to a Jewish family, and they were wealthy, okay? Like, what is with these wealthy people trying to overthrow the government? It's actually kind of silly. It's like your entire existence rests upon this system, and you want to overthrow it, okay? What doesn't sound Bolshevik at all. Like, okay, whatever. I mean, she wrote her memoirs in some, like, I don't know, like an island in France. And so people just raised money to pay for her to live for like 3 years to write these memoirs in France on a fucking island. Like this woman, I don't know. I think she's a fed. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Certainly, I think that she had a role to play in a couple of incidents that happened in the late 1800s. And I promise this has to do with Moses Harman, but see here, this guy, I'm not going to try to pronounce this name, seems to have been mentally ill, and he was attending a speech by Emma Goldman in 1901 in Cleveland. And basically in this speech, she was encouraging people to commit crimes, right? And this dude actually ended up being involved in an assassination plot, and they made it look like it was his idea. But it's strange because he actually came to see her at her Chicago home in July before the murder attempt. And it's strange. It's like if he were a stranger to her, why would he do that? You know, but he wasn't a stranger to her, I don't believe. I think she was grooming him, sort of like we see in these false flag operations. This looks like a late 19th century false flag operation, in my mind. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, not assassination attempt. McKinley did die, the president. Right. This was the assassination back then. And it's because, oh, well, he's this guy who represents capitalism and all these horrible things. And it's really, again, it's so ironic because is that not what her wealth was based on? And also, does anarchism not have the same roots as capitalism, like in a philosophical sense? I'm just going to pull up, I'm jumping around here a lot, I know, but I promise it all makes sense together. This is from the Church of Satan's website, Satanism and Objectivism. So Ayn Rand seems to be like an unofficial Satanist, right? And a lot of Satanists sort of agree with her as far as her beliefs go, she professes. Ayn Rand was beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. At least no one's delusional about that. Was a brilliant and insightful author and philosopher, and her best-selling novels Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead continued to attract deserved attention for a new generation of readers. I'm a strong admirer of Ayn Rand, but I am an even stronger admirer of Anton LaVey for the vital differences between the philosophies of objectivism and Satanism. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of difference, but Anton LaVey obviously saw value in Ayn Rand's work for a reason. Okay. I mean, it basically takes objectivism, which is more philosophical, to a metaphysical realm. Satanism is a brutal, as well as a selfish philosophy. We do not hold, as do the objectivists, that the universe is benevolent. Satanists view the world as neutral, beyond the concepts of benevolent or treacherous, good or evil. Satanism enables the Satanist to codify his life beyond the ethical and metaphysical straitjacket which objectivism unfortunately offers. This is not written to attack objectivism, but merely to clarify the areas of difference. Satanism drew from objectivism, as even Rand drew from others. Both are, however, unique. Both are different from the other. First appeared The Black Flame, 1997. But I found this post, which was fascinating. I mean, yeah, the title kind of says it all. The Alchemical Marriage of Ayn Rand and Anton LaVey. I give people Ayn Rand with trappings. Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan. I mean, is he wrong there? Ayn Rand has long been the intellectual darling of many, both on the secular right but also the religious right, and that's curious given Rand's writing is widely credited with having inspired Anton LaVey, a founder of the Church of Satan and author of the Satanic Bible. Cited in the rather staid academic work Contemporary Religious Satanism, a critical anthology, Anton LaVey is quoted as having admitted that his religion was just Ayn Rand's philosophy with ceremony and ritual added. Rand's objectivism celebrates selfishness as a virtue, and as it happens, the glorification of selfishness is one of the foundational principles of Anton LaVey's form of Satanism. Comment on Reagan, who ran in 1980, on that he was a libertarian, to co-opt the rising popularity of the libertarians with a capital L. It is he who launched the initial attacks on the middle class more than any predecessors, despite his rhetoric. And it is he, a supposed Presbyterian and Bohemian Satanist, who acknowledged the Vatican as a country, thus allowing diplomatic relations. His economic miracle was predicted on credit expansion and big government spending, and not on trickle-down economics, which David Stockman admitted was a massive failure. Ronald Reagan, father of the Ayn Rand revival, went to the Church of Satan. Some folks know he and Nancy went once. What most don't know is that they went regularly. I was told this by an old friend who worked there as a receptionist back in the day. The COS did get pretty weird in a dark way after a while, with American Nazis, white supremacists, and Michael Aquino of Presidio child molesting fame. My friend left because of the weirdness, but the Reagans were still attending. This would sure fit in with the author's idea about COS and Ayn Rand philosophy. So, it's fascinating, right? I mean, there's some stuff about Paul Ryan, close ties to Opus Dei. Yeah. I mean, this article, they're trying to assert that it's different, right? But again, the foundations are clearly the same. The results are the same. One is just for the unsuspecting masses, and the other is for, the more metaphysical weirdos. All right. So with that in mind, let's go back to Moses Harman, okay, who published Lucifer the Lightbearer. Anarchist, connected to Emma Goldman, who appears to me connected to regime change, or attempted regime change in multiple cases, and at least someone who seemed hell-bent on trying to get the working class to overthrow the state, except not really, probably just to make them look bad in front of the state and use that as an excuse to tie them down further, is my belief. Because when you come from a background such as this, it's kind of hard for me to believe otherwise. And you're deliberately inciting violence. You're not using legal means to address issues of the working class. It gets a little bit murky for me. I don't particularly believe it. So, again, she claims, I was so disillusioned with, Russia, the way that turned out. But it's really hard to say. And again, I'm not necessarily against these things, right? Whatever they want to call it, free love, abortion, etc. I'm not against that, but it's the why. What is their ultimate goal? And how does promoting those things help them achieve their ultimate goal? Despite the fact that this man was married basically his whole life and seemed very faithful to his wife, He declared, "Marriage kills love and incarnates hate. The attempt to bind love kills it or changes it to jealousy and hate." Again, it's like, marriage for me, not for thee. The destruction of the family unit is quite apparent here. And again, there's a difference between abortion being performed in private by doulas or mothers, just women in the community. There's a difference between that and taking it to, this sort of medicalized, state ritualized level where it becomes a publicly condoned or even encouraged thing for the purpose of population control. Those are two very different things, and this is something that I really wish that people in the conspiracy community could understand, okay? I'm telling you from a woman's perspective, okay? Like, abortion is not in and of itself wrong, and you should try to accept that, to be frank. You really fucking should, because if you're going out here talking about sovereignty and my body, my choice, you need to fucking understand that, okay? Like, and again, furthermore, it's like women's business. So if you're not a woman, like, I don't even really care what you think. But that's just my personal opinion on that. That's not really the point of this video. I'm not trying to be incendiary here. Moving on. Yeah. Okay. They changed the name again in 1906, becoming the American Journal of Eugenics. So it's pretty fucking clear, right? That's, like, pretty obvious. And this is how much libertarianism has gone astray, or maybe was never really on the right track to begin with. The eugenics of the Harmans was, in most respects, consistent with their libertarianism. As a kind of across-the-board fixation of the era, eugenics did not necessarily mean the sort of noxious racism that it often connotes today. In my opinion, I feel like it is, like, it seems like it was actually worse back then. It seemed like it was, like, hyper-racist back then. Whereas now it's sort of, I don't know, a little more, the racist aspect of it is more taboo. While in hindsight of the Harmans' eugenics, of course, appears pseudo-scientific and even derisible, it was just one component of a broad approach to hygiene, health, social, and cultural advancement in biology. I mean, again, public health, it's kind of a double-edged sword. And it really does tie in with, like, the working class politics and all of this. Because, of course, like, it's better to be hygienic. Obviously, there's less disease and that kind of thing. But also, it's, like, management of these populations working in conditions that are simply not healthy. So it's somehow trying to manage the health problems that will come up inevitably as a result of working 20 hours in a factory per day. You know, like, just unsound conditions. And it's very much tied to, again, what Emma Goldman seems to have been involved in, which was, in my opinion, the complete opposite of what she presented herself as. And, you know, trying to preserve those systems. And maybe it wasn't even something she was aware of, but when people like this exist, it's sort of like it gives a bad name to unions and, you know, people trying to work for change. It really does, because it just makes them look like agitators, like rebel without a cause. And it, again, like, this man clearly was inspired to kill the president as a result of her speech, and she denied it. She was put on trial for it, and she was acquitted. But it seems like, and she claimed that she didn't even know this guy, but it seems like she was around. I mean, he came to visit her in her home. It wasn't like he was a stranger. She pretended that he was a stranger. She was like, I don't know what's gotten into him. It's like, well, you were fucking at the pulpit, like, preaching to the choir, trying to say, hey, like, we should, like, shoot up these wealthy capitalists, even though you come from that background. Like, come on, dude. Just come on. Okay, whatever. I'm over it. Moses Harman was involved in the same circles as Emma Goldman. And this is important because he was tied to the eugenics movement. And Emma Goldman also was tied to the eugenics movement because she worked with, wait for it, oh, fuck me. Did I already skip over this? No, I didn't. It's here. Margaret Sanger. Okay? We all know the eugenics roots of Margaret Sanger. It's really unfortunate that the laws on abortion come from this, honestly. I will be perfectly frank about that. Like, that these people were the ones to set the legal precedent for that. Goldman conducted a nationwide speaking tour, in part to raise awareness about contraception options. Again, this was something women have known how to do for centuries. It's not about like, oh, we need to educate the unwashed masses. It's like, you take people's land away. You take them away from all the things that they know. You put them in factories. And slowly over time, they start losing the sacred knowledge that they've carried with them for centuries. And then you want to reprogram them with your own agenda about contraception options, which is just medicalized garbage, under the guise of public health, like whatever that means. I mean, let's consider, too, healthcare was not kind to women at this time. Like, far fucking from it, okay? Like, basically these doctors just regarded women as a batch of neuroses, like, prescribed them everything under the book, again, to achieve the social engineering they desired. So the fact that Goldman is a so-called anarchist and would go around promoting this shit, it's like, okay, well, you know, you should really consider limiting your families. But I'm for free will. I'm for anarchy. I'm for the individual above everything else doing whatever they want. But not for you, because you're the regular person. I'm the special person. I get to do whatever I want. Right? That's kind of the attitude that these people seem to have. Quote from Julian Huxley: elite transhumanists have no desire to evolve all mankind. Their goal is one which seeks to advance only their own bloodlines and to leave the rest in disadvantage to them, so that these unfortunate ones have no choice but to become their slaves, their lab animals, and their labor force. The lowest strata are reproducing too fast. Therefore, they must not have too easy access to relief or hospital treatment, lest the removal of the last check on natural selection should make it too easy for children to be produced or to survive. Long unemployment should be the ground for sterilization. Darwinist philosophy applied to humanity. Ayn Rand, objectivism, okay? Satanism. It's all tied together. Okay, I'm going to pull up a couple of quotes from the journal published by Mr. Harman. Punishment and preaching. Can't read that now. Hello, Dropbox. The old remedies for supposed sexual abnormality are alike wholly inadmissible. The more modern reformatory discipline may do good sometimes, but rarely. On the other hand, it follows from the criterion we have chosen that giving nature the fullest opportunity to eliminate what she stamps is so doing as abnormal is necessarily and always conducive to race improvement. Sexual liberty of the most absolute kind, the removal of all penalties, legal, lynch legal, and so far as practicable, social, or Grundish, is the first of scientific sexual regulation. Removal of all penalties. What are we observing today? Okay? Pedophilia becoming normalized. No penalties. There's no repercussions for sexual liberty. Remember, marriage kills love, is what this guy says, even though he was happily married for years. Okay? Let's look at this marriage quote, speaking of. Yes, legal marriage may well serve beneficent ends in addition to reproduction, but free association can still better serve these ends, including that of the production of children. So, like, multiple baby daddies is what you're saying? While it is not likely to bring its train many... Okay, this text is kind of blurry. I'm not sure if I'm saying the right words. Many of the evils that are connected with marriage, because marriage is just so bad, right? That's the point that this guy is trying to drive home. Even better than marriage, it can and does strengthen social bonds, knit together new and desirable ties and friendships, and extend culture and refinement. On the other hand, it does not so often, not even frequently, force the lover to accept as part of his family undesirable relatives. Sounds like someone had children out of wedlock. It does not tend to make the man a boot and the woman a slattern, and it leaves free to come into the lives of both many elements of growth to which the husband and wife must be strangers, right? I mean, I feel like this is what the explosion of polyamory is right now, is like this kind of the free love promotion stuff. It's like, well, you can only expand, you don't want to contract, you want to expand, you want to just share love with everyone, because, like, marriage just sucks. Like, one person, that's stupid, like, come on. And also, you want to be able to choose your relatives. You want to just be able to ignore people that you're biologically connected to if you don't like them, because you have so many fucking relatives or something. Like, you see the double standard here with these people? It's crazy. It's actually insane. It's like you displace women's rights and you supplant it with this shit. I mean, come on. This is not what women's rights actually look like. This is the disgrace. Trust, happiness, while it is of its strongest recommendations, that it seriously interferes with the formation and continuance of these convict unions of mutual indifference, distrust, or hate, which abound everywhere that the legal marriage system prevails. And again, it was the same thing with his fucking daughter. She was fucking married at 16. Like, what the fuck, dude? And I don't think she ever got divorced. Like, it's like, while it was my intention to take a little midwinter relaxation, the time has not been spent in illness. My something in Cleveland has been devoted to writing, correspondence, in the afternoons and evenings, to introducing Lucifer and our new humanity to the attention of the Rockeyes, something was called, to holding parlor meetings at which discussion in race improvement through the emancipation of motherhood has been the leading feature. The most important event of my sojourn thus far was the meeting at the Franklin Club. Emma Goldman frequented the Franklin Club, as I understand it. May have even been present for this meeting. On Champlain Street. This was a anarchist association. And if you're wondering why I'm bringing this up, it's because I've criticized Derek Bros before, and I'm sort of criticizing him again a little bit in this video because he's a self-proclaimed anarchist. I'm basically criticizing anyone who's a self-proclaimed anarchist at this point because I sort of self-identified as one when I was 16, and only until recently have I sort of questioned that. And so I'm bringing this up because I don't think things are really what they seem, right? It's like, okay, you're an anarchist, but you're promoting this stuff that it's like clearly people in the highest positions of power want, and it's really like, in this context, anarchism is everything bad about libertarianism, basically, or that people say about libertarianism, right? It's sort of what that is. It's like the market's out of control and it just becomes a monopoly and there's no regulation, or the regulation, there's like hyper regulation on you know, the unwashed masses, and there's basically, yeah, it's really only anarchism for the elites and taken to the extreme, right? Extreme levels of selfishness, brutishness, satanic, whatever, just self pleasure, and it's all under the justification of eugenics, which is intrinsically tied into all of this. So I find that fascinating. Okay, yeah, and clearly, I mean, come on, I'm sorry. Can we just revisit this again? This guy was mentally ill, and he attacked President McKinley and killed him after listening to a speech by Emma Goldman, and visited her house in between. Like, bruh. Okay, come on. That was not... You cannot tell me that she was not involved in that. That's ridiculous. Especially, like, this is played out all the time in today's world. Using mentally ill people to do stuff like that. Patsies. And it just, again, just to make the working classes look bad. And it's like, oh, now we have to, you know, regulate your reproductive faculties and so forth. It's perhaps important to note here that anarchists of Harman's period very explicitly regard anarchism as fitting a rather linear conception of progress as the ultimate end in the progressive drive of advancing human civilization, right? It's not just about liberty or whatever. It's about some, like, race improvement goal, the forward march of which was considered almost beyond question. Scientific anarchism. Albert R. Parsons, who was judicially murdered following the Haymarket Affair, also Emma Goldman involved in, likewise proclaimed anarchism the usher of science, the master of ceremonies to all forms of truth. Similarly fixated on the connections between the supposed hard sciences and social and political forms, Harman preoccupied himself with the proper health and breeding of the human race, comparing the inquiry favorably to the work of improving the breeds of lower animals. What does this sound like? Hard sciences and social and political forms. This sounds like cybernetics. This sounds like the RNA modification that we're witnessing today, trying to genetically engineer the human race to be docile. Harman's interest in such objects of study evinces his comprehensive approach to the questions of his day. Again, resembling the Haywoods, Moses and his daughter, Lillian Harman, considered all social issues together, understanding the logical relationships between questions in seemingly very different disciplines. Yeah, this is why anthropology was a big thing back then. I know something about anthropology, so I would know that. Okay. He was a loving husband, twice widowed, and a doting father to Lillian. Lillian Harman was actually one of the purest women in her personal affairs, opposing promiscuity rather than advocating it. Right, it's free love, whatever for you. Marriage at 16 for the rest of my life, for me, I guess. The ceremony befitting the Harman's family's unconventional ideas on love and marriage. Isn't that just strange? Like, them saying that marriage kills love and then doing the exact fucking opposite in their personal lives. Although she loved him, she would not be tied to him. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, fuck you, lady. I don't care. Yeah, this standard of morality, it's artificial, guys. It's artificial. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. What? In the pages of Lucifer, Walker called Anthony Comstock's Vice Society a moral smelling club composed of partly of hypocrites and partly of ignoramuses, an immoral attempt to encroach on the rights of the individual citizen. Yeah, the Vice Society, I believe, was involved in, like, temperance and stuff like that. Libertarians to the last, Harman and Walker thought that people ought to mind their own business, that decisions of sex and romance were no one's business, but that of those consenting participants. And I believe that that's kind of how it was, outside of the fact that, you know, women were kind of seen as property. But, yeah, I don't think, I mean, has the government ever been able to really regulate, like, whether or not, you know, whatever people are doing at home in their bedrooms? I mean, it's really hard to regulate that, because it's not like they're watching you, unless you're doing it in public. Like, it's kind of, you know, whatever. Okay, I feel like I should wrap this up, actually, because I'm not sure how much else I have to say. I feel like I kind of touched on the basics here. I just find these connections really interesting, and I'm just curious, like, again, the way that this is played out. So I do want to bring up, too, really quickly, what I've found interesting is, so we have an image of what Satanism looks like, right? And it's black and red. That's what it looks like, right? And it has a circle on the outside of a pentagram. Now let's compare that with this. I mean, does it not look quasi-satanic to you? Like, just looking at it. Pretend that you've never seen this symbol before. Does this look good? Does this look, like, healthy? It's almost like I could draw a line here and here, and it would make a star, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it look something like this? I mean, it would be upright because of the way the letter is formed, but it could easily be a pentacle, and there's a circle around it as well. Like, things that make you go, you know, like black and red, and this shared history, at least in the United States, with these people who were essentially Satanists and anarchists. I mean, they literally called themselves luciferians and anarchists, so I'm not making this up. Like, anyway, let me see if there's anything else of interest here. It's interesting because they always want to present these people as, like, you know, a dauntless and pioneering early voice for feminism, sexual and reproductive freedoms, and free expression. Yeah. Yeah, right? It's all about censorship and the oppression of women. There's always a Trojan horse, isn't it? Isn't there always a Trojan horse? Okay. I think that's all I have for you today. Again, this guy is not working class. Eugenicists essentially want to eliminate people that are not like them. Lucifer is the Lightbearer, bringing people into a heightened state where humanity can truly thrive. That's ultimately what the Satanists are reaching for, right? The false light. So it even mentions, under Luciferianism in Wikipedia, Lucifer the Lightbearer. It's an individualist anarchist journal published by Moses Harman. Lucifer the Morning Star. Harman suggested that Lucifer would take on the role of an educator. The God of the Bible doomed mankind to perpetual ignorance, wrote Harman, and people would never have known good from evil if Lucifer had not told them how to become as wise as the gods themselves. But that's the kicker, right? Is you cannot, by definition, be as wise as the gods themselves. Remember, anarchism states, no gods, no masters. But I believe that these gods are real. I'm somewhat of an astrologer. I work with them. I understand that they're entities. We are not. They are different from us. We can never be as wise as them. But that is exactly what Satanism promotes, is like self-worship, and you become a god. But I think actually you sacrifice any wisdom you could gain from the gods if you believe that, in my opinion. So, okay. Yeah. This publication, by the way, edited by Helena Blavatsky as well. So that's pretty fucking important, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Pretty interesting, right? These people were all kind of in the same circles at the time. So, it's just interesting. Okay. Interesting. Houston, Texas. Isn't that where Derrick Rose is from? 2014, Luciferians found a worldwide organization in Houston, Texas, known as the Greater Church of Lucifer. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So, okay. I won't keep you here any longer. Thanks for watching. Comment below if you have any comments. If you have anything to say.